Let's do it. Another edition of The Script, a podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. His real name is Cardale Jones. His nickname is Beanie Wells. I'm Dave Holmes, and Beanie, I'm sure, is remote on location this week because he's doing some major recon work for us, perhaps some scouting. Beanie, what serious matters took you away from the show?
You know what, man? It was a little cold in Columbus, and I said, that's serious enough for me to get on a flight and go to Florida. And if I'm in Florida, I might as well bring my golf club. So why not go to Florida and play golf? But, it was some other Buckeyes, though. Scooney Penn, Mike Doss, Keith Byers, we're all here just to have a good time.
Hold on. Let me reach down. I got to pick up all those names Beanie just dropped.
Yeah.
That's a lot of name dropping, Cardale.
Just gas up the jet. Call it pilot, gas up the jet. Guys, it's 60 degrees here in Columbus, Ohio, and I need something a little bit warmer. Take me to Florida.
Yeah, suckers fly commercial, and Beanie ain't no sucker. What a life. All right, well, thank you for gracing us with your presence, Mr. Wells. So let's start talking about this game, all right? So it's Miami against Indiana in the championship game. We're going to break that segment, or break it down in our next segment. But I do want to ask you, Beanie, do you feel different? Because last time we had you here, you said you were, quote, embarrassed by the way the season ended. Do you feel any differently about the Buckeyes now that their two losses are to the two teams playing for it all?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's great. Well, it's not even great. I can't even say that. But you do feel a little bit better knowing that the two teams you lost to are playing in the national championship. But nonetheless, the way that we lost the game, I still will ride with the fact that how we lost those football games wasn't how we played all season long. To have the miscues on the offensive end and not be able to move the football, the turnovers up front looking atrocious. Yeah, I'm still kind of embarrassed because I believe even with all of that, Ohio State still had a chance to win both of those football games. And when you don't win them in the biggest moments, you scratch your head and you question on, if this team was legitimate as we all thought at the beginning of the year. So, yeah, okay. I'm still kind of, have a little bad taste in my mouth about how the season ended.
I feel a little differently, okay? I guess, Cardale, I've come off the sky is falling mindset of you lose back-to-back games, that never feels good. It looks better in hindsight, but I do get Beanie's point where he's saying, look, no matter who you lost to, you kind of got punched in the mouth on the way.
100%. And I never was on the factor of it was an embarrassment. I thought we just got exposed, where I thought that we kind of lacked the experience and the, the playing ability in certain positions, and that was the upfront positions. And so still not an embarrassment, but I'm not shocked to see these two teams playing for the national championship. But I do agree with Beanie. We easily could have been there. Even though we was outpowered up front by both of those teams, on really both sides of the ball, we still had opportunities to win both of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So I never was on the fact of the sky was falling. I wanted to see what Ohio State would do in a transfer portal, and then also through the development side of things, as we all talk about development here and things like that, to kind of right their wrongs. And so far, I haven't seen it yet in the portal of correcting some of the things up front. Actually, a few guys leaving. Tegris Trabola left. He transferred out, and a few other backup offensive linemen who was in the rotation on both sides of the ball, actually. Yeah. So the questions are still going to be, for me, is how do you correct that up front? And we already know about all the playmakers and things like that, but I think you got to build that program or build this team with toughness to start up front. Okay,
so the sky is falling is the phrase, and the reason I use that is because if you listen to the Lunatic Fringe, right, and that's the phrase Kirk Herbstreit came up with to kind of describe the percentage of Buckeye Nation that's always angry and always disgruntled. The Lunatic Fringe guys think that this is really bad, that this portal thing is worse at Ohio State than anywhere else. We're going to break it down now over the next 10 to 15 minutes. Let's start with the running back position. Bo Jackson is back. He was gone. Now he's back. Now, there were some reports out there, and I'm going to air quotes that, reports, Cardale, saying Bo was looking for this big figure. You went online and basically said, let's be careful here on the narrative. So what can you tell us? What are you allowed to tell us about Bo Jackson coming back?
First of all, what does the fact of he was gone mean? I guess if you're talking about just because the portal was open, well, technically everybody is gone until they're back. I mean, we had guys like Brandon Ennis and a few other guys announcing, I'm back. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were leaving. And it's no knock on these guys, and everybody have the right to test the waters, and every year is a 1 year prove it type of deal in the situation for some of these guys. But Bo was a guy who came into Ohio State highly undercompensated to be a Buckeye. And now this year going over 1,000 yards the first running back to go for 1,000 yards is a true freshman since, Maurice Corrett. He had every opportunity and every reason to maximize his NIL in this space and then putting himself in this position this year. He was the most, by far, productive back. He was definitely, at times, a security blanket for Julian when things wasn't going. You can turn around and hand the ball off to a guy like that. And then I think what makes it more impressive, what he did as a 1,000-yard freshman running back, is we saw how not so great we were up front in the biggest times of the season. He's a guy that him and his family and his circle, they wasn't asking for this crazy number that we kept seeing online of $1 to $1.5 million. And my headache with all of that things when it come out to the transfer portal is this. We developed such a false narrative of these guys. And I say I'm putting all of the media in this, podcasters, reporters, whoever covered Ohio State Buckeyes. They're so anxious to jump out and say we broke a story first. It just reminds you of high school girl gossip. You know what I'm saying? And it's just so crazy. These guys jump out and try to control a narrative and say, oh, brought to you here first by such and such. Don't nobody give a. You know what I'm saying? If you can't support what you're talking about with the true hard code facts, then it's really worthless of what you're talking about at this point, because it puts such a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth about Bo Jackson, where he did nothing wrong. Yeah, that's my frustration with it.
No, and Beanie, he's right, because Bo Jackson took a big perception hit in this town for about 36 to 48 hours. Now, I think all will be forgiven come August, but what do you make of the way this Bo Jackson thing played out? Because people wanted to jump off the Bo bandwagon just based on some reports, and now everyone's like, hey, Bo, you're our guy.
And unfortunately, not only cut you off, Beanie, a lot of guys and a lot of people are still going to believe that narrative. And then when we get to August, when we get to September, when we get to October, and let's say he's not as productive as he was last year because we got a gauntlet of a schedule next year, they're going to be like, oh, and we paid this guy such and such, and he wanted this. So that's the frustration for me personally. It develops such a false narrative, especially about a guy that in a family that is like, man, we talked about this last year on the show, leading into the season, about the great families and the great kids that we come across in the NIL space. And we always mention Caleb Downs and things like that. Well, Bo Jackson and his family is one of those people, and he's one of those players. Yeah,
Beanie, to his point, at some point he's going to go 10 carries for 38 yards, and there are going to be some people grumbling. Like, oh, this guy wanted 1.5, right? Because those rumors got floated and weren't even necessarily true. So, Beanie, your thoughts on the running back?
It's the worst thing ever. Because like Cardale said, oftentimes people only hear one part of a message. They don't do their due diligence to get the entire story. They just take that snippet that they hear and they make up a perception of somebody based off of that sample size that they heard on, a podcast or radio show or somebody tweeting out, and they, make a synopsis about this person's character. It's the worst thing ever. But I mean, it's one of those deals to where we live in a space this day and age to where, everybody wants to be first. The media outlet is anybody who has a keyboard. Anybody who has access to Twitter can make up a story. So it's going to be up to the viewers and the listeners to be able to, dissect that story and get your own truth out of it. But nonetheless, with Bo Jackson, I mean, the guy was great as a freshman. He played well. Like you said, he was a safety blanket. So give him more money. That's in any position. Anytime you're a young guy, you're not going to come in making this boatload amount of money. So when you go and overperform for your team in a contract, essentially, I mean, you deserve to be paid. So whatever that number was, Ohio State, he was right to go back to the table. His family's right to go back to the table, or his representatives, and to go get more dollars to suit whatever it is that the university wants to pay him. So I see nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I mean, we have to throw off this time now that, these kids are supposed to be playing for free. Well, they're not anymore. So that is done and over with. So there's going to be negotiations based off how players perform. And when you're a better player on this football team, you're going to get paid, especially if you're a likable guy too. So it makes sense. But, the whole narrative, people wanting to poo-poo on him is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Every year is a contract year.
Yeah.
Every year is a contract year. I don't see you guys. And I think my frustration with, the false narrative that's ultimately created around some of these players is that this is just as much as a business for the players as for the coaches now as for the players. Soon as a guy gets rumored to have interest or that another school has interest in him, what did we see with these athletic departments all year this year? renewing these guys, extending these guys, and then we look back and say, maybe that Mike Elko or that, extension with some of these other guys was a little bit premature, right? So I think you got to continue to get these guys what they're worth. Unfortunately, we can continue to complain about NIL and where you're going to get the money from and all that other stuff. At the end of the day, universities all around college football, especially the major ones, including Ohio State, they're going to find a way to retain and to come up with that money for the guys that's ultimately keeping these guys paid at a very high level.
Yeah, and Bo Jackson was brought in as a presumptive number 3. He played his way into number 1. And Beanie, you can vouch for this. He plays the most unforgiven, worst position in all of pro sports, because you only have about 6 to 9 years of your life to get paid at running back.
Exactly. So the shelf life is short. So why not? And maybe he didn't go out and, try to get the numbers that, everybody was reporting, but why not try to get the maximum for your value?
100%.
It makes all the sense in the world. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with his career. He may get in a situation where he goes to the NFL and he may only play 4 years like myself because injuries. I mean, you do not know what's going to happen next. So you got to maximize every dollar that you can when you are hot. I mean, it's a business, people. Obviously, we want to win games, and that's a part of the business. You get the best players to put them out there on the football field. You get the best coaches. You put them out there to coach the best players, and you try to win games. And now the fortunate part for these guys is dollars are involved for them. So get over it. I mean, happy we got him back. He's going to be a Buckeye. He's going to be out there playing for us. He's going to be a really good player for us and continue to do some of the things, if not more, for us next year.
Bo Jackson, listen to your boy Beanie Wells, Bo, and you'll be flying private on golf trips in your 30s. Take the I'm messing. Beanie Flies commercial for the record. He's a man of the people. All right, so we got James Peoples leaving to Penn State, so Bo's going to get a lot of carries. The wide receiver room, though, guys, major turmoil. You got Quincy Porter goes to Notre Dame. Mylan Graham leaning Notre Dame was the early vibe. Now Ohio State, as we record this Tuesday morning, still trying to get in there. So Cardale, what do you make of this world where Mylan Graham and these guys, back in the day, you could test the draft waters if you didn't hire an agent and decide. Now we're kind of seeing this with the portal. We're seeing it with Damon Robinson at Washington. We're seeing guys kind of throw their name out there, flirt a little, and then call their old girl back and saying, hey, you still like me? So what do you make of these situations?
Yeah, so the way I would go about any of these situations, just like Steve Sarkisian down in Texas, he came out and said before the season even start, if you're on my team, you put your name in the portal, you do not have a home back here. If we can't talk through situations and scenarios, what it looked like to keep you here versus you trying to potentially strong arm us and get more people throwing their hats in for you, then we don't want you here to be a Texas Longhorn anyway. And I think that's the approach I would take if I was running a program. But Mylan Graham is definitely more than capable enough to be a number 1 receiver anywhere around the country. And I think when you risk recruiting so many top guys and they all come in, and a lot of these guys are very similar in position and style of play, Quincy, Mylan, Jeremiah, and Chris Henry coming in, it's only one football. I don't view all 4 of those guys in particular guys that you can move from the outside to the inside, so they're all very similar players. Now, Brandon Inniss, you can put him anywhere. I think you can put him anywhere. And then Cardale was the same type of player. So, some of those receptions that or those plays that was taken from the outside, they're not affected as much because they can always be on the field. Now, those 4 guys, I think, are true outside number 1 receivers. Well, you can only have really 2 on a team. And who, in this day and age, who want to sit around and wait when they know they can be a guy somewhere? So, best of luck to Mylan. Best of luck to Quincy. I just saw, like you said, he transferred and committed to Notre Dame. And I think Mylan's going to put himself in position as well to be a team potential number 1. Or at worst, at number 2.
Beanie, what do you make of this? We love these relationship metaphors on this show. So if your girl said, hey, let's work on some things, and you said, I'd love to, but first I want to go out on 5 or 6 dates with other women, and then I'll let you know if we should fix things back home. That doesn't fly. So are you okay with these guys going to the portal and then maybe coming back to school?
No, man, because the portal was orchestrated, right, for guys that, were in a situation to where they weren't playing and they truly weren't the guy at that university. So they needed to go on the greener pastures to figure out if they could indeed be the player that they thought they could, but get the actual opportunity. Not for guys like Justice Hayes, right? Justice Hayes is the running back of Michigan. The guy was the starter. The guy was all word at the beginning of the year until he got banged up. And he left Alabama to go to Michigan and was balling. Now he's in the portal. Situations like that make no sense because to me, what that screams is a money grab. I'm trying to go out and get see who can pay me the most dollars. So I don't think that's what the portal was made for. The portal was made for a situation where you're not playing, or you may be in a doghouse with the coach, and you go on into a new situation to where you need a fresh start, and all things, work and go perfectly. Just the Joe Burrow situations of the world, right? That's what everybody envisioned with the portal, not this whole money grab thing that we're tying to NIL, or we're out trying to get the biggest and best contract on a year-to-year basis. I don't like those situations whatsoever. Now, I do understand with the Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter situation a little bit more, because understanding that, hey, these guys want to be, one, they want to be playing on the football field. Two, I think going into their second year, they believe that they are the type of players that can make an impact on a university right away. Now, there's only 3 positions, right, at the receiver spot. We know Cardale is going to be gone. We know Ennis is going to be stepping up, and we know Jeremiah's position is solidified. Until Ohio State says, you know what, we're going to run 4 wide, then that leaves a little bit murky for those guys. So I understand a little bit more, but at some point in time, when you're that young in your career, you have to say, you know what, I'm going to stick where I'm at, because I'm going to prove that I'm this high caliber athlete, and I'm this competitor that's going to go out there and compete for their opportunity to be the starting wide receiver. I don't like, tucking my tail and dipping because things aren't going my way right now, especially when you're a young guy. I understand it a little bit more if these guys were going into their junior years, their senior years, and they wasn't playing. But not out the gate. Like, come on, man. You still have an opportunity to be redshirted because you didn't necessarily play that snap count to where it blows your red shirt. So, no, don't do it so soon. But I do understand the want and the need for certain guys to move on to try to see if I can be this number 1 wide receiver, so to speak. But right now, so Beanie, soon, it makes 0 sense in my mind.
All that shit sound good, but we go back to these metaphors of like the girlfriend, and it's a situation like this. You got your girlfriend and another pretty girl come up to you. I'm going to do what she ain't doing for you. She ain't cooking for you? Oh, I know how to cook. What, she ain't rubbing your feet at night? Oh, I'm going to rub those feet. And plus more. And that's what's happening in this transfer portal world, where it's free agency, where you have in schools like, man, they got Jeremiah Smith and they got Chris Henry coming in. Well, shoot, man, you can be the guy here. Well, I'll fight for a spot over there when you can be the guy here. So I think it's a more of a head scratcher, not for those 2 guys, because they know what's coming in and don't want to potentially waste another year of eligibility, on top of both of those guys clearly, with being highly recruited guys, all the talent is there. Someone is going to pay them more to come in and compete for a spot, a starting role, a face of a receiver room, versus OSU potentially retaining those guys and competing to find themselves in the rotation. Now, my biggest question or head scratcher came in the portal when we talk about some of these DBs who left. Some of these DBs who left, where you was going to walk into the spring situation where you're going to be fighting for 1 to 2 to potentially 3 starting spots when you're talking about the departure of IGB. Sanchez, clearly he had to compete. I mean, he probably had the favor to be the other corner outside of Jermaine Matthews Jr., but he still had to compete to be the full-time guy. Lorenzo Styles Jr. is no longer there at that nickel position, and then also the safety position as well. And we know Ohio State, as many times on the football field, had played with 4 DBs, even 6 at times, including the both safeties. So for some of these young DBs to leave in critical times of their careers where they was going to come in and compete second year in the system, it was a little bit of head scratcher than going somewhere else. Still got to do the same thing. Still got to go compete and learn a new system. But at the end of the day, it's a transfer portal window. It's free agency. Let's call it what it is. It's literally free agency. And good luck to all the athletes in the portal this year. I mean, it's close to 10,000 athletes in the portal in this window, and it's not 10,000 homes. So that's the head scratcher.
Well, let's talk about who is coming to Ohio State, because, like I said, the Lunatic Fringe was losing their minds until about Monday afternoon. Monday was a big day for the Buckeyes. They bring in 4 new players. They bring in Quay Rusaw, who's a kind of a linebacker edge rusher from Alabama. They bring in James Smith, very good defensive lineman from Alabama. Both those guys started for the Crimson Tide. They bring in a pair of safeties, Earl Little Jr. from Florida State, Terry Moore from Duke. So, Cardale, as you look at all that's been added to the defense, are we happy about what's arriving? Or are you still slightly concerned that I just didn't name a single offensive lineman on that group?
Yeah, that's my concern. And I do think you're losing more on defense, clearly with 4 potentially first round guys. I think that's probably a huge emphasis, and especially how we played on defense last year. You want to make sure, I mean, it was the same defense won championships. But yes, I think the bigger concerning factor is how do I protect. And, I just invested whatever I invested into a great young running back. The investment is going to have to be there for the quarterback at the quarterback position, Heisman Trophy candidate. And then clearly, as you continue to build around and, put the right pieces around a guy like Jeremiah Smith. And that starts up front. Mm-hmm. That starts up front. And then especially with the departure of a few starting linemen, Tegris Tabola, and then some rotational guys as well, you probably want to, emphasize bulking that up, especially the way you got beat the last 2 games of the season, and it was really up front. So good things that they're working on defense, but I think the portal still is open for another week, maybe. Mm-hmm. So I'm anxious to see, what direction they go in here the next couple of days.
Beanie, so I mentioned all those names on defense. So it looked like terrible portal window for the Buckeyes. Now they're kind of in the back half of the top 10 in most rankings. They've kind of steadied the ship, but still haven't addressed a major concern. So as we look at the portal as a whole right now, how do you feel about the last week or two?
Yeah, I'm loving the last week. I mean, all of a sudden, kind of be dismal and jump right in that top 10 of, portal classes. It makes me excited, and obviously still knowing that we have time. I said it a couple of weeks ago, if I'm a coach, right, if I'm the head of an organization, and I know this is a copycat league with college football and NFL, right, I am absolutely doing a case study on Indiana and how they evaluated players in their portal system, and then how they figure out how to get those guys to gel and play together. I'm following that model to a T. So whether that's going out and getting nothing but 4 and 5 year guys and putting them on this team because one, they understand, what it's like to be a student athlete, what it's like to be a college football athlete. But then you don't have to bring these guys along and get them to be motivated, because now they're at the tail end of their careers. They understand what needs to be done and what's asked of them to, 1, get to the next level, but 2, to learn how to win right now. So I'm following that Indiana model, and I'm going to get older veteran guys. So as I'm looking in the portal, I'm figuring out, okay, which offensive linemen that were starters, how well did they play, and how old are they? And let's target those guys, because there's so many good offensive linemen at other universities that are out there in this portal right now that I believe could help us, because that's the drastic area in which we need improvement, is in the trenches. I love what we did on the defensive line, getting those guys from Bama, obviously getting a secondary guy and Little Junior from Florida State. I think all of those guys are going to help. But like Cardale said, we have to hit the trenches so much harder, particularly on the offensive end. And I'm certainly following that Kirk Cinetti model, and I'm going to get older veteran guys right away, because we all know experience matters. Yes, it's all good to have this young, high-octane athlete that's full of potential, but it's potential. I want guys that I know can play right now and that can help me right away.
It's so wild, man, because like what he's saying, Cardale, back in like the Coach Calipari Kentucky days, it was
oh my God, I was just about to mention this.
Give me 18-year-olds and
I'm gonna run you out the gym.
Yeah, and now it's like everyone's like, you 23?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're right, exactly. Everybody wants that. We keep referring back to our relationships. Everybody wants that older, mature woman.
Don't want the Cougars now.
Exactly, but it's so funny because you look at the dynamic of college athletics, in particular the 2 revenue generated sports, football, basketball. Look at the last, I would say 5 to 6 years. I don't even know the stat. And as Beanie was talking this, it had me thinking about it. Maybe the last 5 or 6 years in basketball, UConn was twice, Florida, who just won, Houston, and then whoever, I don't know. Yeah. But you look at how those teams was built. Those were men out there. And then you look at some of those teams who had the number 1 freshman class, like when Duke and Kentucky run into some of these guys, and those young 18, 17, 18 get hammered physically, right? Get hammered physically. And then you look at the football side of things. Well, go back to Michigan. Who won before Michigan?
Ohio State, Michigan. Was it Georgia?
Georgia.
Okay, Georgia was a team. I don't know if they was built on so many older guys, but Michigan was. Michigan had all those 4 or 5 year guys, and then Ohio State as well. All the guys we retained. Now you look at the 2 teams right now who I think who's playing the national championship right now, Indiana and Miami, both portal heavy. You look at the trend every year in the NFL draft. It's more 3 to 2 to 0-star athletes picked in the first round,
Yeah.
coming out of high school, right? Their rankings, than the 4 or 5-star guys who was all world, all American since they touched the football. Look at Curcinetti team. How many 5-star guys he has on that team? 0. 4 stars, I think he had like less than 5.
Yeah.
Right? And he has a bunch of guys, a group of misfits, right? Guys that are hard-nosed and understanding the value of what it's like to be on a team. And I think the average age of his team is like 22 or 23 years old. So he's doing it, completely different. And like Beanie said, now I'm alleviating some of those things that come with being a head coach, far as the development side of things and recruitment side of things. Because you look at with Ohio State and in a lot of schools around the country, you think you're going to have this guy for 3 to 4 years in your program, but soon as, the 2 years is up and you think he's going to come in and make an impact on your team because he's been developing for 2 years in your system, he hits the portal.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? I think it was 5 of the top 7 guys from 2 years ago's recruiting class are no longer on the roster. Yeah. So how much money did we invest in those guys out of high school to retain those guys? And now there's like, okay, well, we developed you, hopefully good enough for someone else.
Yeah, the poster child for what you're just saying is Cam Ward, because it's like nobody wanted Cam Ward when he was young, then everyone wanted Cam Ward when he was old, and then he was the number 1 pick in the draft. And Beanie said we want to look at that Indiana model. Coming up next here on The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes, we'll break it down, Hoosiers and Hurricanes, who you got and why. That's coming up next. College football not feeling as juicy as it once did. Well, let me put you onto something that'll shake up your Saturday and every other day of the week. Because now that Wendy's has crispy chicken tendies and a powerhouse lineup of new sauces, it's time you transfer to the hottest team in the league.
That's right. Team Tendies. Wendy's Tendies, they're making their undeniable rookie season one for the books. Enjoy first-string flavor from some 5-star recruits. Rep your new favorite team everywhere you go, but make sure you cheer with your mouth closed.
Take it to the end zone of savory sauces like honey barbecue, creamy ranch, and that new Wendy's signature sauce to experience a total taste bud blitz of flavor. It's time to join the team that won't upset you with an upset.
Taste the phenom that's gracing the gridiron with its juicy, crispy, and tendery tendencies. Don't fumble the bag. Commit to Team Tendies and call the most delicious plays in the playbook. All right, huddle up. Tendies on 3. Tendies on 3. 1, 2, 3. Tendies. Let's do this. Wendy's Chicken Tendies now at participating U.S. Wendy's.
For Buckeyes and businesses, Branded Bills has you covered. Whether you're showing your scarlet and gray pride or you're building a brand of your own, nothing tops a custom hat.
Branded Bills is a proud sponsor of Ohio State athletics with licensed Buckeye headgear that looks just as good in the horseshoe as it does when you're walking around Columbus. And beyond game day, they specialize in custom headwear that helps businesses, teams, and communities stand out with premium fit, finish, and style.
So whether you are a diehard Buckeye, an entrepreneur, or just someone who want to rep their story, check out Branded Bills. Explore their official licensed Ohio State collection or design your own custom hat built just for you. Branded Bills for Buckeyes and businesses, licensed pride, custom style.
Welcome back to The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Time now for our Dr. Pepper look around the world of college football. Hit us up at The Script OSU on all our social media. Follow us on Apple or Spotify, or click subscribe right now if you're watching the video version on YouTube. You get to see Beanie's golf clubs in the background. What kind of sticks are we swinging, Beanie? What are those?
So I am on the A Smokes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Callaway A Smokes.
I'll see.
Nice. Well, hopefully we just got him a free set. Hopefully.
Exactly.
Hopefully. All right, let's break down this game. We got Indiana against the Miami Hurricanes. Imagine 2 years ago if I would have told you guys the Indiana Hoosiers are going to be 7.5-point favorites in a national championship game. This is insane. We're going to talk about Indiana big picture here in a second, but first, your initial read on this game, Cardale.
I like the matchup. I think both teams are built very similar. When you talk about the toughness in the front seven on both sides of the ball, I do give the edge to Indiana because of the quarterback position. I think Fernando Mendoza is a little bit more consistent than Carson Beck, but Carson Beck has been sneaky good on third down in the pass and in the run game. I think I was tweeting about it as I was watching the Ole Miss game, went out to the Fiesta Bowl, and I was just like, dude. And you look at where we played him, he killed us on third down with his legs. So there's going to be an interesting game. But if you'd have said, even at the beginning of the season, that, these two teams would be the national championship, I thought, clearly it was a far-fetched for both of these guys, in my opinion. But they just continue to get better each and every week. And I don't know if Indiana is 7.5 points favor or that much better than Miami, especially being in Miami. And it's kind of weird because Indiana's going to be the home team in the Hurricanes' home stadium. But it's going to be a good game, and I really don't have a potential read on either team winning this game.
Yeah, Beanie, my gut says I would take the 7.5 just because I think Miami's a really gritty team, and I think they've proven it. But I get why the line's that big, because Indiana looks like they're just going to beat the brakes off everyone. So, I mean, I get the line, but that's a lot of points to give a pretty good Miami team.
It is a lot of points, but like you said, I understand it. I mean, the way Indiana's went out and played, especially the last couple of weeks, we're talking about perennial powers who they just dismantled and made look like they were a group of 5 football teams with Alabama and Oregon. They went out and just dominated those teams. And I don't care how bad of an Oregon team you're playing, how bad of an Alabama team you're playing. They're not supposed to look like how they looked versus Indiana. They're supposed to look more competitive. So it makes you really wonder, man, is Indiana legitimately that good? We know with the way they played Ohio State, they were smothering on the defensive side. They stifled our offense in every sense of the word, outside of obviously the big plays of Jeremiah Smith. But when you look at Miami, they're a gritty, hard-nosed team. And I've been back and forth with Miami fans for the last 3 weeks, right? They've been killing me on Twitter, killing me on Instagram. And when you look at Miami, they're a team that is hard-nosed. They can run the football. I'm just not sold on their ability to be able to score a lot of points at a high clip. And I think that's going to be something that may have to be the case versus Indiana. But I know one thing. They're going to be able to run the football. They're going to be physical in the trenches at the point of contact. And, for as good as Miami is, do they have a talent to win this game? 100%. But I think this game will come down to them being a disciplined football team. I think they're one of the most penalized teams in the country. And that's going to be glaring in the national championship. They're going to have to play a clean football game. Can they win it? Yes. Will they? I just don't think so, because Indiana never shoots themselves in the foot. They play a clean game for the most part. They don't turn it over. They don't have penalties. They play good on special teams. I mean, they're an older group, and so is Miami for that matter. But, those guys don't make mistakes.
Yeah, we would like to welcome all the Miami fans who have joined us the last few weeks, because, my goodness, Cardale, there are some relentless fans in our YouTube comments, on social. Beanie's out here getting security, changing his address. I mean, they're coming at us since that game against Ohio State.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I love it. And,
me too. I love it. Passion, man.
The professional side of me, the unbiased side of me. Miami was one of my dark horses to win this thing.
No, I feel bad because you hyped them all year, and then the Miami fans watched the last episode where you took Ohio State to win.
Yeah, of course.
You've been hyping the Canes since August.
Yeah, but then when you're talking about clearly where my ties is, I got Ohio State 100-0 versus anybody. Clearly.
Yeah.
But I think on the flip side of this is what I really want to get you guys' opinion on when it comes to these two teams. We talk about the run Ohio State has went on last year in the playoffs after losing to Michigan. What's more impressive, Ohio State resume last year or this Indiana resume? And you can go back to Indiana resume throughout the regular season, the games that they played in Iowa, the dogfight in Iowa, clearly beating Oregon at Oregon, something Ohio State wasn't able to do last year. And then the comeback win versus Penn State. And then clearly the Big Ten championship game, winning that game the way they won it, right? They proved they can win the close ones, the gritty ones, or they can just whoop your ass. And then clearly the 2 playoff games so far are completely dismantling 2 teams that, was favored substantially more than them to win the national championship when the season started. And then clearly if they cap off versus Miami, that would be pretty good. But I think so far their resume is one of the best, in recent times of college football.
Yeah, I'll say it. So the Miami fans that have gotten all over us be like, oh, it's a Homer podcast. First off, I want to say this. Of course, it's an Ohio State podcast. Secondly, post your bet slips in the comments that shows that you took Miami money line against Ohio State. If you really believed it, post your bet slips. Because if so, credit to you. I think most people thought Ohio State would win, but Miami deserved to win, no doubt. No excuses. Third, to your point, you want to talk objective. Indiana's season this year, no question, is more impressive than what Ohio State did last year. It is. 2 losses to 0 losses. The way they've beaten people down, Beanie, including Ohio State. And by the way, credit to Ohio State for holding this offense to 13 points. That does tell us how good the Ohio State defense was, Beanie. But for me, it's not even a question. This Indiana season would be the most impressive college season we've seen
Probably that.
Maybe since like Burrow's LSU. Like it's been probably a decade since we've seen something like this.
I would beg to say that this is probably the most impressive season we've seen ever in college football, because we're talking about a perennial doormat of college football. Indiana wasn't anything. They were a team that you knew going into the season, if you're a Big Ten opponent, okay, this is going to be my stat game. This is going to be a game that I can get up some good numbers in, and for young guys to get an opportunity to play in. So you knew that was the case. So for a team to come out of the ashes and be in a national championship with their second-year head coach, that's nothing short of amazing. This may very well be, and I don't know if we talk about it later or not, but it may very well be the greatest story in sports history in terms of coming back in a program that was doormat to being, one of the most nationally relevant teams in the world.
Yeah.
So this is insane. I mean, Indiana's a quality football team. Their story is so much better than Ohio State because of where they came from. And then you talk about a coach that, he wasn't a coach at a major university coming from, he was an assistant at Alabama, but he wasn't.
Whoa. JMU was just in the college football playoffs.
That's right.
That is amazing. JMU was just in the college football playoffs. That's still Kurt Cinetti, guys.
Yeah.
He's just there 2 years ago. So it was a major program.
Put some respect on one of the best presidents. The guy wrote the Constitution, for God's sake. James Madison wrote the Constitution. What have you done, Beanie? He wrote the Constitution. So Beanie's talking big picture here. But Cardale, does Indiana need to win this game to have any sort of legacy? Because the Hurricanes can win this game, and no one 20 years from now is going to talk about that great one-loss Indiana team. You got to win this game.
You got to win this game. You got to cap it off. And like I said, I don't have a real feel on this game. I think it can go either way, but I do not think Indiana is 7.5 points that much better than this Miami team. But for Indiana to cap off this amazing, unbelievable turnaround in the storybook run, you got to win this game, and I would love to see it won in a walk-off fashion. I just love the storyline. And when guys, as you can tell, I'm a big storyline guy, and that's why I had, Mendoza or Diego Pavia winning the Heisman, because their storylines was a lot better than anyone else's at that point. I don't think their resumes to that point or numbers were too impressive. But the storyline is there now for Indiana to win their first Big Ten championship outright in a million years, and to beat Ohio State in the first time in 30 matchups. 2-year turnaround with Kurt Cinetti, Heisman Trophy winner, the first number 1 seed or the first top 4 seed to win a game in the college football playoff 12-team system, and everything. They have it all going for them right now.
Yeah, Beanie, you can hear the Miami fans right now on the keyboard that we're crowning Indiana. I can hear them typing right now. So do you think they have to win this game?
I absolutely think they have to win this game. 100%. I mean, like you said, if they don't win the national championship, it's still a great story, but we're not going to it's not going to be a Hoosiers part 2 made after this football team if they don't win a national championship, right? It's going to be a great story that everybody, they had an amazing run the last 2 years. But if they want that movie, they want that Hollywood scripted ending, they have to win the national championship. And Cardale, you talk about storylines. How about a storyline like this? I mean, Fernando Mendoza, his dad played high school football with Mario Cristobal there in Miami. They go back home to play the national championship in Miami. So Fernando versus his dad's teammate, who I would say is probably wrong for not recruiting him when he was in the transfer portal to Miami, is a crazy storyline.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then this is his second time actually in 2 years playing against Fernando Mendoza, because Miami goes up to Cal last year with Cam Ward.
That's right.
And that barn burner, that Friday night football game that it was, I think it was Friday night. But then now Fernando Mendoza has a chance to cap off his college career in his hometown. Oh my God, the storylines is amazing.
We're writing screenplays.
ESPN 30 for 30. Hometown kid return back home. Right?
I love it. I love it, man.
This is great.
No, it is a great story. We can't wait to see the Hoosiers and the Hurricanes. But coming up next year on the Scripted Podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes, we talked about the transfer portal earlier in the show. We're going to try to fix it coming up next year. What can we do to make this portal better? Stay with us. Welcome back to the Scripted Podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Dave Holmes, Cardale Jones, Beanie Wells, as always. Time now for our Buckeye Basement Solution. We try to fix something in the world of college football. And at the top of the show, guys, we talk transfer portal. And Beanie brought up a name, Justice Haynes from Michigan. And this is like the anti-portal guy, right? Like he goes from Bama to Michigan. He's incredible for the Wolverines. Portal again. We assume that's a money thing. We assume. So, guys, how do we fix this? Because I think we all thought it was going to be Joe Burrow. It's going to be guys who don't get to play. And now it's, as you said, Cardale, you said it, call it what it is. It's free agency.
Free agency.
But clearly the system's broken when we have 10,000 people out there looking for homes. So what do you think, Cardale? How would you fix this system?
First of all, I don't think, I think Hayes' situation is a little bit more, is a little deeper. Clearly, with the departure of Coach Moore and everything that goes on in the program, and then having a new coach coming in, maybe he just don't want to play for the guy.
That's true.
System could be different, whatever the case may be. Because I don't view, this Michigan. I think Michigan's offense is going to be just like how they played out in Utah. Clearly, he brought his coordinators with him and everything, and I think Hayes want to be traditionally behind a fullback and some of the things that we traditionally seen Michigan do. So I don't think it's one of those situations that's potentially a money grab. I mean, we got multiple guys who end up at multiple different schools each and every year. But I think the way you fix the portal is it's difficult, right? Because you try and you say, why you don't take on the NFL model? And the biggest thing that people don't understand, it's hard to adapt as many NFL models when you talk about college football because we deal with more sports. It's just not all about football. It's not all about football. And the way you would be able to take on as much as the NFL model as possible, it will cut into spring ball because then the NFL calendar year doesn't start January 1 like the traditional calendar year, and then they don't have to deal with clearly academics. NFL calendar year starts in, I think, March or April, right? If I'm not mistaken, when free agency opens up or right after the draft. Yeah. And that's where everybody's in free or everybody has that window of free agency, not the transfer portal where you still got teams playing football and then things like that. So it's hard to kind of fix that situation when you got the calendar year traditionally start the way it is, and plus school and plus teams are still playing in the bowl games and playoffs.
Yeah, and
so I don't know how we fix it.
So Beanie, to his point, basically saying if we did NFL free agency during wild card weekend, that would be borderline insanity. And that's what we're doing in the world of college football.
100%. 100%. We definitely need to fix the schedule and fix the schedule for a number of different things, not just the portal, but, for, when coaches can start interviewing for jobs, when, like you said, when the portal starts, when bowl games start, the whole college football world schedule needs to change in general, particularly the football. But in my opinion, the way to fix this thing is, I know it's not going to be popular, make it for, if you're a freshman coming in, you have to have a 2-year commitment to a program before you can leave and go somewhere else. Because now it gives an opportunity, one, for you to go through your freshman year, and then two, that second year, if you're not playing, then you can go on and leave. And then if you're a coach, you have at least 2 years with a guy. Now, obviously, you have to make it make sense. You have to make it to be a commitment not only to university, but you have to make it to a commitment to the kid to where you're giving a certain amount of dollars to him as well. But I think if you make it make sense for both sides, 2 years makes it suffice only if you're a freshman. Obviously, if a guy's transferring and he's a junior or senior, it's a little bit different in that situation. But I think it's a 2-year commitment for these freshmen signing letter of intents makes a lot of sense. I think that will make coaches feel a lot more comfortable, and it's not necessarily starting the kid's clock so soon. So a kid could still leave and still have 2 to 3 years elsewhere if he decides to transfer at some point in time. And I think everybody could be a little more comfortable, a little more happy with a situation like that. But it has to be reeled in. You can't keep letting this thing be the wild, wild west out there to where guys can pick up and leave whenever they get ready, whenever that window opens. And we'll have a situation where we got 10,000 kids in the portal. That makes zero sense because not all of these kids are going to find homes. And let's not forget about the fact that a lot of times when we see kids in the portal, it's not because they want to be all the time. Some of these situations are kids being pushed out of universities. So that 2-year commitment for freshmen, I think, will make a whole lot of sense on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I love that. I've always said I'm a big fan of either a 2 transfer max or a fan of a 2-year commitment up front, what Beanie's saying, because Cardale, back in the day, right? It was like when Pantoni and these guys would land someone, you'd see the boom. It's like, oh, we just got a 4-star D-line. Read the comments now. Whenever Ohio State lands a commit, every comment is cynical. Who cares? He'll leave after 1 year. Who cares? Like, no one even cares about recruiting anymore because it's just fool's gold. Because you think, yeah, you got a 16-year-old. First off, he might decommit and recommit 2 other places.
For sure.
On signing day, he might leave you at the last second. Yeah. Then he comes there. He's going to transfer after 1 year. Like people are just bitter and cynical about the recruiting process at all now. So I actually like Beanie's idea of some sort of commitment, or like I said, a 2 transfer max, something that lets you bounce a couple. I don't know. I just don't love this idea we say it's like the NFL, but in the NFL, you still have to sign contracts.
Yep.
You can't be a free agent unless you keep signing 1-year deals, which is risky from a health standpoint.
Yeah, the frustrating part.
The brain's not all the way developed at 17, 18 years old. You're not fully developed knowing what you didn't know at 22 years old.
Yeah, and I think, and you're saying that too. I think it plays into the narrative of why certain coaches are living in the portal with older guys versus the younger guys. But I think here's the dilemma. One way you can potentially fix it is I like Dan Lanny's comments. Eliminate one of the bye weeks, right? Start the playoffs right after the conference championship games, right? And you get the plan right through there. And you'll be done, I think, January 1st or 2nd, right before the portal window opened up and everybody has a fair shot at the portal. Yeah. No one has to deal with leaving your team as they're playing in the college football playoffs. Or you had guys that were on teams in these last semifinals that was committed to other places through the portal already. They just waiting to their season to end. And I think that's one way you can solve the issue. But here's the biggest kicker on all the issues we're trying to solve to continue to support the money maker in the machine, which is football of college sports, is that as we continue to change major things to accommodate that, it's less and less about the academic part. Yeah. It's less and less about amateurism, right? We start to talk about basically NCAA starting to lose a little bit more of their grip on saying, no, these are amateur athletes, academics, and education is first. So if we start to tailor that thing, I think the more control they ultimately lose in that narrative of student athlete, right? It's like, okay, student first, athlete second, right? So we start to lose that narrative of that in that restraint of the NCAA. And one more big pet peeve on the NCAA. Beanie, do me a favor. As you continue to build multi businesses, and Dave, you as well, I can't wait till your businesses get to $1 billion, $1 trillion, $1 gazillion dollars. I don't care what it's going to be. Because I do believe one day college football business is going to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars because clearly it's very close. Get to that point. And then all the hard work you did to get to that point, go ask some volunteers that you want to run it for you. Like, just walk down the street. Like, hey, what do you do? Okay, you're a dog walker. Hey, you want to run the business? Hey, you a mailman? Hey, you want to run this business? Hey, you just got a high school? Hey, come run this business. Like, do me a favor. Go do that. And let's see how much success that thing will have.
Yeah, the funniest part about that story is that Cardale thinks I have money to start any business. That's the funniest part about the whole thing. So, Beanie, as we wrap up this Buckeye basement solution, do you see a world where we have a collectively bargained NCAA? Because I think by about 2030, that's where this almost has to go.
Yeah, most certainly. It's coming. It's coming down the pike, especially when we got into the situation to where, it is legal revenue sharing from the universities and athletic departments. Most certainly there's going to be a governing body that steps in and has a collective bargaining agreement to where it's equal on all sides. Well, I mean, most collective bargaining agreements, it's never entirely equal, but there's some rules and parameters around this thing, and I think that's the direction we're going in, and I think it's the right thing to do because nobody wants to be left to second guess anything when all of these dollars are at hand. I always said it before, it's too much money at stake to not have answers to questions, major questions, as it pertains to college athletics.
Yeah, and in any CBA, you'll always find what Beanie's referencing. The billionaires will always have it better than the millionaires in every CBA. It always works that way, but it would at least get closer to the playing field. I think that would be good for the players. That is our Buckeye basement solution, trying to fix the portal. If your damp or wet basement needs a quality solution by a local company, it is time to call Buckeye Basement Solutions. They are the pros at waterproofing, foundation repair, and creating dry, healthy spaces you can actually use. I mean, no more leaks, no more worries. Hook it up with our guy, Brian Mastroianni, 614-956-4592. Let's finish up with this, guys. Big weekend for the Buckeyes at the NFL level. Jackson Smith and Jigba, all-pro. Chris Olave, all-pro. Cam Hayward, all-pro for the 6th time. Beanie Wells, Cam Hayward should be on a golf trip with you right now. And he's still doing it as Pro Football Focus is top-graded interior D lineman. What can you say about your boy Cam Hayward?
So crazy with Cam. I mean, I knew immediately, I think I may have told the story before, when he came in to Ohio State, I knew he was a freak of an athlete. This dude was like 280 pounds. And when I say we had a little gym at the Woody, he went up, took the ball between his legs and hits like some crazy windmill backwards dunk. I'm like, God damn it, he's a defensive lineman. crazy. But Cam always had a wild motor, and he was just always freaky athletic. So it's no surprise that he's doing what he's doing right now, this late in his career. And the crazier thing is, like, it wasn't like Cam was like a workout warrior, but he always had this old man crazy strength. And you see that old man crazy strength playing out right now. I think at the end of the day, Cam's probably going to be a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I think that's, without question. That dude is a beast and a freak. And kudos to him for still doing it at 36 years old at one of the more physical positions, the defensive line. He's taking a beating every play. So it's wild, man.
So I have this visual.
He's giving the beating every play.
He is. I picture him walking around the Woody Hayes opening jars all day with this dad's strength that Beanie's talking about. Cardale, the other big story. So every single team left in the NFL playoffs has a Buckeye on it. Vrabel gets a big win as a head coach. C.J. Stroud. Now I know he didn't play his best game. He had a fumbleitis up there. But C.J. Stroud gets the first road playoff win in Houston Texans victory. And say what you want about CJ. Maybe he's been not as good as he was after his rookie season when he was Rookie of the Year. But the guy does have a playoff win now in 3 years for a franchise that's not exactly the 49ers.
No, totally agree. I mean, I think, with all, the things that was, being down one receiver with Nico Collins, eventually with the concussion, and then, Jack Sawyer getting the strip fumble on him, and then a few other things, he still found the way to help his team win games, and it always helps when you got a really good defense. So congrats to the Texans, congrats to CJ, because they're going to continue to get better and better each and every week. And, you don't have to be the best team, but you got to be the best team, in that any given Sunday. So, yeah. They got their first road win in franchise history in the playoffs.
Yeah,
nice.
Big win for them over the Steelers. We're going to see how well he can do this coming week in the divisional round. That'll do it for us here on The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Make sure you hit us up on social at The Script OSU. Click that subscribe on YouTube right now or Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you back here next Wednesday with another episode.